somewhere in the jungles of Cambodia, hidden beneath centuries of creeping vines and strangler fig roots, sits a structure so vast, so impossibly detailed, and so breathtakingly old that the first Western explorer to lay eyes on it refused to believe human hands had built it at all. It covers more ground than Vatican City, multiplied by 4. It took 30 years and over 1 million cubic meters of stone to construct. It has survived invasions, civil wars, the fall of an entire empire, and the passage of nearly 900 years. And today, its image appears on the national flag of Cambodia, because no symbol better captures who these people are and where they come from. This is a complete history of Angkor Wat, and it is far stranger, far more dramatic, and far more human than anything you've been told before. The story begins not with the temple itself, but with the empire that made it possible. The Angkorian period began in AD 802, when the Khmer Hindu monarch Suryavarman II declared himself a universal monarch and god king. This was not simply a political declaration. It was a statement about the relationship between ruler, religion, and the cosmos itself. The Khmer kings believed they were divine intermediaries between the human world and the realm of the gods, and everything they built was designed to express that belief in stone. Between the 10th and 14th centuries, the kingdom that we call Angkor dominated much of mainland Southeast Asia. Its capital held over 1 million people, making it one of the most populous cities in the world. At a time when London had fewer than 100,000 inhabitants, this jungle city was feeding, housing, and governing a population that rivaled modern-day San Jose. The Temple of Angkor Wat itself was commissioned by one of the most powerful rulers the Khmer Empire ever produced. Angkor Wat was built in the 12th century by King Suryavarman II, who reigned from 1113 to around 1150, as the state temple and political center of his empire. It was built using 1.5 million cubic meters of sand and silt, with a central tower rising 213 feet high. The surrounding moat runs a perimeter of over 3 miles with a depth of 13 feet. The engineering required to move, shape, and assemble that quantity of stone without modern machinery remains a subject of active study among archaeologists and engineers today. Construction is believed to have spanned some 3 decades, and all the original religious motifs derive from Hinduism. The 5 central towers of Angkor Wat symbolize the peaks of Mount Meru, the dwelling place of the gods according to Hindu mythology. Every wall, every corridor, every carved surface was a deliberate act of cosmological storytelling, a civilization's entire understanding of the universe expressed in sandstone. The walls of Angkor Wat hold some of the most extraordinary artwork ever created in the ancient world. The temple is laden with artistic treasures like the bas-relief galleries that line many walls and tell enduring tales of Cambodian history and legend. These are not simple decorations. They are sprawling narrative murals stretching for hundreds of meters, depicting battles, religious ceremonies, mythological epics, and royal processions in extraordinary detail. Historians have used them as primary sources, reading the carved walls the way others read manuscripts, extracting information about how the Khmer dressed, how they fought, how they worshipped, and how they understood their place in the universe. Khmer engineers also designed impressive reservoirs and arrow-straight roads connecting Cambodian cities, and Khmer poets composed elaborate inscriptions that survive at many of the temples. This was not a civilization defined only by its monuments. It was a fully realized world with its own literature, its own science, and its own profound sense of beauty. Then came the turning point that changed Angkor Wat's identity forever. After the Cham people of modern-day Vietnam sacked Angkor in 1177, King Suryavarman II decided that the Hindu gods had failed him. When he built a new capital nearby, he dedicated it to Buddhism, and thereafter Angkor Wat became a Buddhist shrine. The transition was gradual but complete. Statues of Hindu deities were replaced or recarved into Buddhist figures. New inscriptions appeared alongside the old ones. The spiritual meaning of the space shifted, yet the physical structure that housed that meaning endured without interruption. Although Angkor Wat was no longer a site of political or commercial significance by the 13th century, it remained an important monument for the Buddhist religion into the 1800s. Unlike many historical sites, Angkor Wat was never truly abandoned. Rather, it fell gradually into disuse and disrepair. Buddhist monks continued to live and pray within its walls across centuries when the empire that built it had long since dissolved into history. The Western world's encounter with Angkor Wat is its own complicated chapter. It was rediscovered in the 1840s by the French explorer Henri Mouhot, who described the site as grander than anything left us by Greece or Rome. Mouhot's amazement was genuine, but it came wrapped in the assumptions of his era. He refused to accept that it could have been built by the ancestors of the Cambodians he interacted with daily, in exactly the same way that Westerners of that period rejected the notion that the great cities of Mexico and Central America could have been built by the Maya. The French colonial administration that followed used Angkor Wat as a symbol of the cultural wealth they believed they were protecting and managing, while simultaneously extracting authority and resources from the Cambodian people. The temple was being celebrated internationally at the very same moment its people were being denied independence. The 20th century brought horrors to Cambodia that no ancient wall could fully protect against. When Cambodia fell into a brutal civil war in the 1970s, Angkor Wat sustained relatively minimal damage. The Khmer Rouge regime battled troops from neighboring Vietnam in the area, and there are bullet holes marking its outer walls as a result. The Khmer Rouge, in their campaign to erase Cambodia's pre-revolutionary identity, targeted artists, dancers, and scholars who carried the living traditions connected to Angkor's cultural legacy. Khmer culture almost vanished during the bloody reign of the Khmer Rouge, but Cambodians today are reclaiming their inheritance. The survival of the temple through that period was not just architectural luck. It was a reminder that some things outlast the worst that human beings do to each other. Recovery came slowly, then all at once. In 1992, the Angkor complex was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site and was immediately added to the list of World Heritage in danger. In the ensuing years, restoration efforts increased, and Angkor was removed from the danger list in 2004. Nations from across the world contributed teams of architects, archaeologists, and conservationists to the effort. UNESCO set up a wide-ranging program to safeguard the site and its surroundings, ensuring consistency of restoration and conservation projects carried out by the Royal Cambodian government and its international partners. The scale of the restoration work required was immense. Sections had to be dismantled stone by stone and rebuilt from the foundation up, with researchers documenting every block before it was moved. Today, Angkor Wat stands as one of the most visited places on Earth, drawing travelers from every country and every background. The temple complex now welcomes 2 million visitors every year, and the most popular time to visit is in the early hours of the morning to witness a beautiful sunrise over the magical temple. UNESCO continues to work with Cambodian authorities to ensure that tourism access and development do not compromise this great cultural treasure. The challenge of protecting a nearly 900-year-old structure from the combined pressure of 2 million annual visitors, rising humidity, and the roots of surrounding vegetation is one that requires constant attention and an enormous amount of international cooperation. It is an ongoing project with no end date, because a living heritage site is never truly finished. What Angkor Wat ultimately represents is something that goes beyond architecture, beyond religion, and beyond the specific history of one Southeast Asian empire. Cambodia is the only nation in the world to depict a ruin on its flag, and Angkor is a crucial component of Cambodia's identity. In that single fact lies a profound statement about what human beings choose to carry with them across centuries of change, loss, and rebuilding. A civilization can lose its empire, its independence, and nearly its entire cultural memory, and still look back at what its ancestors built and say, "That is who we are." Angkor Wat is not just a temple. It is a record of a people's highest ambitions, their deepest beliefs, and their refusal to be forgotten. 900 years after the first stone was laid, the world is still looking, still learning, and still finding new reasons to be astonished.